Take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. A woman done left, took all.
Talk Radio 790 KABC. You're listening to the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show, and I'm Karl Gerber. I had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We went down to Jersey Mike's and got one of their 14-inch, yes, 14-inch giant turkey sandwiches. My wife thought she had a coupon, but it turned out to be expired. If we knew we had to pay full price, we would have got the 7-inch. We basically divided the sub into 4 equal parts on account of my oldest son being taller than me and still growing, so we gave him 6 inches. The other son, who is 10, but, growing too, we gave him 4 inches. My wife got a piece a little smaller, and I was okay with all the pickles being gone by the time my inch was cut. I don't like all that salt anyway. So we went down to the bottom of my lot with the Jersey Mike sandwich where that big crater I've been talking about. No one will take credit for digging with, heavy machinery and all. And my youngest son got into the hole for warmth, of course. And the rest of us dangled our feet over the edge. We ate our pieces of what you have to call a hero, not a sub if you're in New York. But we were in Studio City, so we called it a sub. If I had to do it all over again, sure, I'd do it differently. I've gotten a 7-inch regular sub for just me. All right, so Karl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer Show, and we've got a show tonight with Rhemus Helms, the most important man in Sun Valley that may make comedy history if we play it off right. Given all of the philanthropy the Helms Foundation is involved in this time of year, I sincerely appreciate you coming to the station tonight to help me celebrate my 25th anniversary as a lawyer.
Helping others is a lot of work, but every night on my way to bed, when I pass the one-eyed monster in the hallway, I know I've made many, many mountains of lives happy.
I rather thought the one-eyed monster is how this all got started.
Mr. Gerber, the one-eyed monster is a blue furry creature with 2 legs, with an oval for a mouth that doesn't fit his teeth.
We mustn't forget you live on an ostrich cosplay ranch. Hopefully it was a joyous Thanksgiving there.
For the first time in months, Mistress Luboff was able to sit next to the robot from episode 5 of this show. Even though he doesn't eat, he had a raucous time flipping squash wanker style. I have so much to be thankful for.
From what I've heard on the various episodes of this show, it does appear your $200.1 million in penile seed money has brought you a multitude of opportunities.
Mr. Gerber, can we digress and go back to those tender times in 1994 when you were but a baby lawyer and my genital was being infringed? This is supposed to be the special episode of the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show to celebrate your 25 years representing employees.
Yeah, Rhemus Helms is right. I suppose it would be appropriate to go back to the beginning.
My days behind the camera were over. This was back when Michael Bloomberg was a Democrat, before he donated $20 million to elect Democrats this midterm. He flew me to the tallest building in the old North Tower of the New York Trade Center, sitting in his office laced with Jerry Garcia posters and movie posters from Barbarella, the particular machine they went inside of. That's why I trusted him. He offered me a Bernie Madoff fund he said was worth $50 million in exchange for my 100% ownership in 86 sexagenarian productions.
Sexagenarian is 100, and 86 means to ditch, but I deduce 86 sexagenarian is another way of saying 100 minus 86.
Well, lucky number. But brought me my good fortune and fame.
You may recall when I brought you on this show on episode 6, one of my conditions for bringing you back was you had to limit the number of references to your thing.
Now, how can I possibly do a thing like that?
You're right. That's not a fair request.
If I recall correctly, The same day Michael Bloomberg offered to buy my production company, you were admitted to the State Bar of California.
Well, there is a picture of me standing in a Sherman Oaks parking lot holding up a daily journal announcing the bar results, although who passes the bar is always big news in the legal newspaper. I do believe the big national news that was something about your expected meeting with Michael Bloomberg was all over the papers.
Now, let me tell you what wasn't in the paper on November 23rd, 1993.
That I signed up my first client after I got sworn in as a California lawyer.
Mr. Gerber, how could you bring this back to your joy? November 23rd, 1993 is the same day Adin Elvira got a hold of the mold.
This totally ruins it for me. Now I'll always be thinking my anniversary as a lawyer is the same day an adult novelty toy company stole the mold to your genital.
They didn't steal the mold. They tricked me.
I thought you were with Michael Bloomberg on November 23rd, 1993, the day I got sworn in as a lawyer.
After our business meeting, which ended in smoking a certain something through our, I can't say which orifice, Michael invited me to a party on Park Avenue. At the time, it was called the Hotel Delmonico. Now they're just a bunch of protesters out there. How could I say no to Michael's invitation?
Well, no would be the way it's done.
Grace Slick and Daryl Hannah showed up dressed as oak trees. Something went on with me in a linen closet and one of Daryl Hannah's friends. And she sold Daryl, who invited me up to the place they call the loft on the top of the 3 floors of the building.
This sounds like a memorable 1993 era event. What happened up there in the loft?
I took care of all of the women up there. I think this might have been filmed from Central Park, down below.
Can we not hear about that video?
I'm up in the loft. Beautiful views of Central Park. Beautiful views of my thing. This creep with a super weird hairdo, like a demented Chucky in Goldilocks, sees I'm still at attention, lays down a resin mold.
Why was a demented Chucky with a super weird hairdo carrying around the resin mold, or should I ask, given the fact you were there?
I recall a lady named Marla. She was walking around carrying a jello mold. Figured she was a phone sex operator, and she was carrying around her sound effects. I didn't know her date's mold. The guy with the weird hair was resin. I figured he worked for a bi-curious phone sex line or something.
How did your male member just happen to get into the resin mold?
I almost lost it when I saw the guy with the weird Goldilocks hair. But I am Rhemus Helms. In a room with 10 to 15 actresses. I wouldn't do a thing like that and disappoint Hollywood.
To segue back to my 25 years as an employment lawyer, I've done 1,775 cases in California and a bunch of other states too.
I later found out the bushy eyebrow man with the resin mold was hard up for cash. He couldn't make debt payments on 2 casinos he owned. He'd recently filed for bankruptcy.
Did this particular man with a bad hairdo happen to know that you were going to this event?
Of course. This was the Rhemus Helms toast of New York City.
Of course.
Bacchanalia was held in my honor.
This seems less like teen spirit and more like fake news. I wonder if the whole thing was a setup.
It most certainly was.
Does this mean you lied to me in 1994 when you told me your entertainment company was worth $50 million?
At the time, there was a lot we did not know. We did not know you would be the leading employee lawyer of Los Angeles. Yeah. Or that the future public enemy #1 of the free press had tricked me into resting my moneymaker on the mold.
Is any of this documented?
It's all in my case files.
Did you ever find out how much the unauthorized mold was sold for?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million and a few free hair transplants.
Real or fake?
I don't think it's fake. I was born this way.
Oh, brother, I always knew the details of your penal infringement went all the way up to the highest levels.
On episode 29 of this show, I heard Judge Bizou reminiscing about being the lawyer for Adin Elvira. During that brief moment she was in private practice. Me using your name wasn't the only reason I got $200.1 million.
I'm not sure what to believe. Before a very reputable source like Judge Bijou confirmed your receipt of that sum on this show, I didn't think your infringement case could possibly have settled for anything like that in 1994 or $1995. But the more I hear about the growth of your operations, I started to wonder.
Have you generally been satisfied with the guests I furnished for your show?
I'd prefer not to go on the record and acknowledge anything in this particular respect.
Back on the Ostrich Ranch.
Of course.
Our little Thanksgiving gathering where PJBC III has some of the freshest peas dipped in organic wildfire honey. We all gave gallons worth of coconut juices. In thanks to you.
For what? I never represented you on the infringement case.
Don't you know? This show and all the publicity it's generated for me has boosted the value of my enterprises 14 times. Or 1,400%.
I have often thought about renaming this the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer and Rhemus Helms Mirth Show.
Would you really? You aren't just saying that in order to get 100 million listeners a week, are you?
I hadn't considered that angle. How many followers do you have on Twitter, Rhemus Helms?
More than that idiot who unlawfully took a mold of my most private thing.
All right, call 1-877-525-0700 to be represented by the same law firm who never got Rhemus Helms $200.1 million. 877-525-0700 to be represented by an employee-only law firm that would never stoop that low, even if it would have brought them fame and fortune. 877-525-0700 if you want a law firm who won't bore both the judge and jury to their untimely deaths.
I've told you where I was on November 23rd, 1993, and where I was by the time of my settlement. But this is your show. One of us needs to say where you were at the dawn of your lawyerhood.
Well, getting back to what this anniversary special is supposed to be, the field of California employment law was in its infancy back in 1993. A year earlier, Gant versus Sentry had been published, and a variety of appellate decisions were starting to be published about the Fair Employment and Housing Act.
Is that act fair?
Many employers may not think so. The Fair Employment and Housing Act is supposed to liberally protect the rights of those covered, such as persons over 40, those with disabilities who should not be made fun of, pregnancy, and victims of sexual harassment.
Yeah. What about people in a lower caste system?
Wealth is not a protected characteristic under the Fair Employment and Housing Act.
And I meant the difference between, say, Pumpkinhead, a rather important cosplay actor at my ranch, and a day player like, say, the elder Carol sibling.
Laws do not protect one class of employees treated differently than another because the one not treated as well is less important in the business, or in your case, the cast of characters at your cosplay ranch.
I've been meaning to ask you, what if it's a distinction between human and semi-human?
What?
You know how it works. When there's a group of humans, like, say, the McDonald's girl, and then the sea monkeys, who are mainly bottom dwellers. Besides, there's so many of them. Nobody really knows them as independent sea monkeys who have their own unique personalities.
Actually, I don't think your scenario was all too familiar in the California workplace, but if there was a division between one job group composed largely of one race, and that job group was treated differently than the other job group that performed a similar job, that might be race discrimination.
I guess my example isn't a good one. The sea monkey machinated maca probiotics, muffin top peas on white doilies, 5 minutes before the 10-minute rest breaks. My people are provided before and after their 30-minute uninterrupted meal breaks on my ranch. Presuming there isn't a Nayotaimori going on.
Of course.
They decide to spend their uninterrupted meal break eating sushi off a naked or otherwise scantily dressed woman.
Yeah, when I first got into employment law back in 1993, the Family Medical Leave Act was new. It got added in 1991. I remember even by 1998, some lawyer who told me he'd never heard of any big wins on the Family Medical Leave Act, so my client should take a small settlement, even though she was fired due to a serious medical condition protected by FMLA.
No, it's awful. It's awful. People thought a case was worthless because somebody was fired due to a serious medical condition and not a disability?
Yeah, I guess, but the family medical leave is a leave often given to people with disabilities.
Did you prove the lawyer wrong?
It wasn't until 2008 I got more than $500,000 on a California Family Rights Leave Act case, CFRA/FMLA case. I had a few wins earlier, but they were less.
If a certain ex-adult superstar took so much Viagra over the years that he's sort of stuck in one position, could that be a disability?
This is always weird with Rhemus Helms. And in the adult entertainment business, I don't think that would be a problem.
This isn't about me.
And if it was, we'd know.
If this is preventing the actor from doing softcore, I know it's silly, but they still do those, Isn't that a major life activity?
The ability to work is a major life activity. If the actor is prevented from doing a certain type of work due to this very unusual condition, it could be a disability.
Could we get a medical opinion on this?
Yeah, I'm not calling my brother.
I'm doing a lot of thinking. The Helms Foundation needs to establish a free clinic for people who are in the business, or used to be.
All those has-been adult stars, did any of them at least qualify for Medicare?
Unfortunately, a lot of us don't make it to 62. But I wouldn't say Ron or Nina or has-been.
Yeah, I know Demas is your older brother.
You're not going to cross-examine me on that one.
A Rhemus Helms is 14. 14 times 6 is 84.
No, I'm not 90.
You are familiar with scaled rulers, aren't you? A lotsman has to use a scaled ruler instead of an inch to a 10-foot scale. I'm thinking we could do 1 inch for 14-foot scale.
Yeah, just like a foot used to be the same size as the king's foot.
At least maybe shoe sizes could be changed in Sun Valley and Fontana, where you are the most important man in Sun Valley and Fontana.
My thing sure has brought me a long way.
It's made you a national hero, as we learned in episode 30. A billionaire, I presume, by now, and philanthropist.
Yeah, by 2001, I had turned the $200.1 million into several billion.
I thought the whole mold thing was never worth the $1995 you were paid.
Well, that's a matter of opinion, isn't it?
No comment.
Where was California employment law by, say, 2004, 2005?
The practice was changing. Everyone wanted in. I guess they thought they'd meet an international adult superstar if they were an employment lawyer.
Was Michael Avenatti really an employment lawyer, or did he just get a good class action?
He probably just got in the whole scene in hopes of representing a former porn star.
Were the cases changing by 2004, 2005?
A lot of laws had come out about wages and hours. Meal break and rest break cases got big. A segment of lawyers started calling themselves wage and hour lawyers and shying away from wrongful termination, discrimination, and sexual harassment cases.
Did you get in on the wage and hour scene? What kind of a scene was it anyway?
Well, it wasn't like that party you told us about in the New York hotel that has since become a Trump property.
I hate to think one lawyer would sneak up to another lawyer and pull a stunt like that.
Yeah, I can't really say that's happened to me, but now I'm going to think twice about using public men's rooms in the courthouse.
Maybe you can walk into a public restroom and do your thing, but I can't.
Well, that's a shame. Has something happened down there we should talk about?
Mr. Gerber, more has happened down there than has happened in the entire history of Trump Tower, the Donatello, and every room in that skyscraper guests have rented by the hour or slept in since 1972.
I'm not really getting why you can't walk into a public men's room.
Fame.
I don't think I could give you a positive ID.
Want to try?
Many of my legal arguments and motions and complaints were copied, but once they were in court files, they were in the public domain.
Other lawyers copied your briefs?
Legal briefs are not private. They enter the public domain once they make their way into a court file. I'll tell you something that's changed. Electronic filing. It's more work for everyone. The judge requires a paper copy, a Word file of an order, and the whole thing has to be turned into PDFs and uploaded.
Mm-hmm. With an electronic file, the judge on my case could have had some animated graphics showing the features of my things. There would have been no dispute because the crappy mold that doofus made out of my thing didn't have the contours and beauties of the original, which
I thought we were going to pull out a bottle of Dom and do a little toast. I didn't know this would mostly be a show about your thing.
Aha. My pleasure.
Well,
here you are.
Oh well. Finally, let's see if we can open this. Maybe we can. Maybe we can't. Oh, what is this? Oh, wow. Thanks, Rhemus. This is a bottle of Dom Perignon White Cream. I've heard of white gold for over $2,000, but what's white cream?
I switched the label.
I'm not drinking this.
Mr. Gerber, I bought this on eBay 10 years ago for £1,400.
As long as this isn't some special Rhemus Helms edition.
I wonder if Dom Perignon... I bet they do a thing like that. Special edition Rhemus Helms with a real pop.
Oh, Rhemus, would you stop popping the cork? You're going to either deafen or disgust our listeners.
I am ever grateful for our listeners.
I used to wonder if they listen for employment law or something else.
I've had my number cruncher do a little analysis.
Does he literally crunch numbers?
I used to be Six-Pack Pete. But after you gave me all that advice about sexual harassment, I changed his costume.
Then I suppose he crunches numbers with his bare hands?
And his bare buttocks.
Rhemus! How is that any better than him walking around with a chiseled torso showing?
He only crunches numbers with his bare buttocks when he's analyzing a defendant employer's calculations in one of the cases you're opposing.
Oh, in that case, I completely condone his activities.
Always trying to help you along after all you've done for me.
Did your number cruncher come up with any legitimate analysis of why people are listening to this show?
Yeah. They sure aren't listening because they want to hire an employment lawyer.
Yeah, I sort of figured that out.
They might be someday, though. And we're all betting they'll hire you.
Yeah, you're listening to the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. This is Talk Radio 790 KABC. We have Rhemus Helms, the most important man of Sun Valley, helping me celebrate 25 years as an employee lawyer, which occurred on November 23rd, 1993, which we've now found out is the same day his thing got infringed. I doubt it, but if you feel like calling a real labor lawyer who's going to make everyone crack up and maybe that will help you win your case, you can call my office at 877-525-0700. Once again, 877-525-0700. I am a real employee lawyer, 877-525-0700. Legal briefs are boring, and there are ways to get the judge to actually read your brief, and I happen to know them. So, again, this is the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show, heard every Sunday from 7 to 8 o'clock, and we feature fictional accounts to keep you interested and not bored out of your mind, in which we do cover employment law. We have talked about some of the way it was when I started, with some of the acts being newer, the whole wage and hour thing not being big, and of course electronically filed papers did not exist then. When we come back, we're going to find out more about the whole Rhemus Helms scenario. I'm sure he has legal problems with the employment law variety that he wants to discuss. So when we come back, we'll talk more about that on the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show on Talk Radio 790 KBC.
The national debt is now over $20 trillion. What happens next? Rising inflation drops in the dollar's value. Some experts say another crash is coming. You can fight this, not with stocks or bonds, but with gold and silver coins in an IRA from Augusta Precious Metals. Call 855-858-5807 and learn how an IRA backed by physical gold and silver can hedge against inflation. Call Augusta Precious Metals right now at 855-858-5807 and get a free gold IRA guide. Call 855-858-5807.
You work hard and you play hard, and let's face it, sometimes it hurts. That's why people around the world depend on Tiger Balm. Tiger Balm goes right to your aches and pains. Made from a blend of herbal ingredients, Tiger Balm is the nation's #1 selling pain-relieving ointment. Rub it in and it works. Available in ultra strength and a convenient hydrogel patch. So whatever your age or lifestyle, roar back with Tiger Balm. It works where it hurts. Available at stores everywhere.
The natural habitat of a creepy doll is a horror movie. It can't help being creepy. It's that small, fixed smile and those never-closing eyes, always watching you, plotting, which you're imagining. It's mindless. But when the creepy doll hears that Geico not only saves people money, but also gives them easy access to emergency roadside service through an award-winning app, it knows you should switch. Because yes, switching to Geico is a no-brainer. The only question is, how did the creepy doll move from the bedroom to the hallway? I would get out of the house.
The wait is finally over. Dell's biggest Black Friday ever is on. Save up to 50% on Black Friday deals, plus get free shipping on everything. With massive deals on Dell computers with 8th gen Intel Core processors, the hottest gaming gear, and savings on top brand electronics like Samsung TVs, it's the one sale of the year you don't want to miss. Just call 800-BUY-DELL or visit Dell.com/Black Friday. Quantities are limited. Call 800-BUY-DELL for more Black Friday deals.
The Online Trading Academy is the leader in investing education, and they can help you generate income for today or your retirement. Attend one of their free 3-hour classes, and they'll send you home with a do-it-yourself investor's kit, preloaded with some of their most popular video-based investing courses. It's a thank you just for attending. Classes are all over Southern California, the West Side, San Fernando Valley, Orange County. They'll teach you how to trade just like the pros, learn how to create daily, weekly, or monthly income using Online Trading Academy's patented supply and demand strategy. All you have to do is give them a call. 888-991-TRADE. That's 888-991-8723 to attend and get 2 free passes to their 3-hour class so you can check everything out for yourself. And if you call right now, they'll send you home with their do-it-yourself investor's kit just for attending. It's loaded with exclusive investing courses and some of their best lessons from the pros. It's a limited time opportunity and seats go fast, so call right now. 888-991-TRADE, 888-991-TRADE, or visit them online at otaclass.com.
Are you looking for an alternative to drug and alcohol rehabilitation that allows you to recover in the privacy of your own home with an individualized program? The Key Light Company's Concierge Detox LA can be that alternative. Headed by Dr. Damon Raskin, addiction specialist, and clinical psychologist Dr. Howard Gless, Concierge Detox LA can meet your recovery needs. For more information, contact Concierge Detox LA at 323-935-9712. That's 323-935-9712.
Hey, SoCal. Whether you want breakfast for dinner or dinner for breakfast, Norm's has you covered 24 hours a day. For just $13.99, get a 3/4 pound T-bone steak, plus 2 farm fresh eggs, golden hash browns, and Norm's famous buttermilk hotcakes. Or choose a 3/4 pound T-bone steak with fresh vegetables, baked potato, and soup and salad. All this from just $13.99, but only for a limited time.
Stater Brothers doesn't just do business in the community. Stater Brothers is part of the community. And from now through December, Stater Brothers is harvesting hope in our community by partnering with local food banks to help families fight hunger this holiday season. Donate $5 at your local Stater Brothers to provide fresh and healthy food and funding for those in need. Help us fight hunger in our communities and donate today.
The hard truth is that our nation is divided, wounded, and angry. Where is the voice of reason? Tune into A Nation Divided, discussing issues that divide us and how they affect our civil rights. A Nation Divided with Brian Dunn, Saturdays at 4 p.m. on Talk Radio 790 KABC.
Chef Jamie Gwen here. Join me every Sunday for delicious conversation. You'll hear from celebrity chefs, Food Network stars, authors, artisans, and wine and travel authorities. Each week brings a new culinary experience. So join me at the table on Sundays at 12 noon right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC.
I'm Tiffany Haddish, and I'm a Groupon super user. Black Friday and Cyber Monday are coming up fast, but it's easy to skip the lines and still save on thousands of this season's hottest gifts. You've already got the free Groupon app. Just act now. Save on great gifts like a massage for mom, a race car driving experience for dad, and toys by Mattel for the kids. Millions of people are doing it. Why aren't you? Save more while you gift more. Act now. Groupon.
Indeed knows finding the right hire takes time away from your business.
Hiring a qualified data engineer felt like a second job.
More job seekers use Indeed than any other site, so there's no better place to find someone with the skills you're looking for.
I needed someone with a master's in computer science and database experience.
Plus, Indeed screener questions help you find your shortlist fast.
Now I'm back to having just one job.
See why more than 3 million companies worldwide use Indeed to hire. Post your job at Indeed.com/hire. Indeed, the world's #1 job site. Source.com/score total visits.
Talk radio, 790 KABC. Take this job and shove it. I ain't working.
Talk Radio 790 KBC. You're listening to the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show, and I guarantee you this is the weirdest, strangest, and hopefully most funny show on commercial radio at this time or any other time the whole week. You also can listen to this show on YouTube on the Karl Gerber channel if you want to live stream the KBC website. You can listen to it on iTunes, however you want, because this is real, and I think that Rhemus Helms is the voice of reason. I'm also hoping that I'm hired over some idiot boring the audience to death, running off at the mouth about employment law, or tricking people to tell their gory tales of workplace betrayal to all the bionic ears scanning the Southern California airways. Right, Rhemus?
Have you heard of Atlantis?
They're under the sonar, according to the soldier 2 episodes back.
Oh, they aren't part of the long-lost civilization of Atlantis. All those people are mining for carbonite on my ranch right now.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. You've befriended a bunch of cretins looking for fatless, calorie-light, man-made food products found in frozen yogurt.
I've heard some of the people calling into your office about new cases.
If we insinuate there is an analogy here, I'm not going to get any more new client calls.
I'm only suggesting some of the new client callers out there should thoroughly review the legal content of this show before wasting the time of a real employee lawyer.
You've never been in my office.
I can still hear what goes on in your office.
What have you heard, Rhemus?
I've heard one of your lawyers spends the whole day typing into a word processor. Word, I think.
Oh, titillating.
Reading what you're typing sure is.
Thanks, but this is super weird and a super invasion of privacy, notwithstanding an educated guess would be one lawyer in a law firm might be typing into a popular word processor like Word.
Well, they say I'm omnipresent.
I think one of the guests on the show said that.
Those pathetic people who want to sue because their boss told them to get back to work.
There are quite a few people who have not behaved appropriately at work and want to sue if they are not given an immediate answer that their case will be taken. They call back at my office a minute later thinking we're another law firm.
Could this be a problem with rejection?
That's why a new client caller might write a scathing review about the person who answered the phone, even though they were never a client of the law firm and never got to speak to a lawyer.
It would be wise for employees to listen to each episode of this show. You cover a few important pieces of the puzzle every show.
I'm hoping the public gets more of a vibe what an employment lawsuit entails if they listen. I don't think the public understands enough about how Superior Court trials and class actions work. When it comes to the concept of arbitration, mediation, it's even worse.
Employees should call 1-877-525-0700 if they think they were wrongfully terminated. 877-525-0700 if they were sexually harassed. 877-525-0700 if their employer owes them a lot of wages or they want to sue as a class. Winning a trial isn't about telling a story. Mr. Gerber told my story, and I used his name to get me $200.1 million. When that public enemy number one took a mold of my genital, sold it to Adin Elvira for $5 million.
None of this is true, except they should call me. While we're giving out real phone numbers like my office, I want to take a test. Listeners, this is your chance to call into our live show at 800-222-5222. You will tell the call taker whether you want the show to turn into me taking live calls, or there will be scripted comedy relating to the workplace and employment law. That's 800-222-5222 to vote on whether you want me to take calls from people claiming they have an employment problem, or for there to be guests on here like the most important man in Sun Valley. That is 800-222-5222 to vote on whether I should be super serious and take calls from people who don't really have employment cases, because if they did, some employment lawyer in the crowded field would have snapped their case up, or we continue with super bizarre scripted comedy, which might rival some of the all-time greats, from cheeseburgers to telephone operators to phone sex operators who are independent contractors. The last was episode 1. I can go either way.
Yeah, so can Demas, but mostly the other way.
I heard Demas is teaching high school level art at the university. How's that going?
He looks just like the little guy on the Best of YouTube video for this show. The guy who's painting the picture of me over at the university struck him so he can do precise detail work.
Rhemus, I know it's been a hard year for you with your daughter, Anita Orchid Helms, dead for a good part of a year, and that was all before she was resurrected, of course.
Mr. Gerber, you always come to the rescue when I need you. I'm forever grateful for you realizing she could be stimulated back to life through an interesting episode of the show. Episode 28, to be exact, in which you and Starlight time traveled to 1939. 1950 and 1959.
Not a single person has called in suggesting I take live callers. At any rate, there was a lot of controversy about whether Anita Orchid Helms was really dead. After all, she'd been spotted at the Dollar Tree in Culver City buying plastic orchids, and Star Bright wasn't too sure if Anita was alive or dead.
No, the only thing Star Bright is sure about is the future of sanitary napkin database management.
Well, it is quite a field. I presume that is why the unemployment numbers are so low in this country right now.
A lot of people ask me what you would say. For instance, is it worth bringing a lawsuit for a job loss if somebody finds another job in a few weeks?
That type of case would have to have an employee who suffered severe emotional distress, not ordinary emotional distress, or had another type of damages besides just lost wages. A lot of the people suing for unpaid wages, such as overtime or meal breaks, finally decide to do it when they lose their job.
I never should have listened to my psychic when she suggested shooting Anita up with sodium benetol. Just kept her in a further slumber. I just figured if they did it in a movie from 84, they should do it again in a movie from 18.
Hey, probably not the best idea. You know, that was one of the episodes on the show. But then again, a lot of weird stuff went down at XIO 415, where she was bored to death. And then the autopsy report thereafter. Personally, I can't be too sure whether she was alive, bored into a near-death state, or a death-like slumber.
I've been doing a lot of thinking. I've decided that a lot of the things about my life are abnormal. Plain don't make sense.
Is this a sudden realization?
Mr. Gerber, do you think I should buy out Organic Ostrich?
When people kept coming on the show claiming they worked for that bizarro outfit where they had the Fixer, dog races, and Tanita Gravita I, who was pregnant for 11 years, I always expected them to say, you, Rhemus Helms, own the place, especially with you being in the ostrich farming business.
Mm-hmm. I've often suspected they intended to trade on my fame. Their use of the name Organic Ostrich roughly corresponded with my entry into ostrich ranching.
Given their unsanitary practices with the dogs being brought into the food production area and their little problem with the accidental high content of feather fill in their soy drums, I am not sure why you would want to be associated with that outfit.
Ostriches?
It's allegedly a vegan company. They don't even use ostrich meat.
They don't.
Not unless it's another thing they're doing unbeknownst to their customers.
No, ostriches are magnificent animals. Such grace, their muscular stomachs, the strength to mate after eating Pop Rocks. After eating a rock.
You're listening to Talk Radio 790 KBC. This is the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. I'm Karl Gerber. I bring you comedy to illustrate the points of employment law. We have Rhemus Helms actually sitting next to me. He's the most important man in Sun Valley and Fontana, California. Oh man, Rhemus, although ostriches are your thing, and you know that organic ostrich is supposed to be a vegan company. I believe they sell bubble gum made from ostrich eggs.
Oh, good God. Imagine the candy striper chewing ostrich gum.
Oh, that's not especially pleasing thought. But on the other hand, do you have the candy striper doing any charity work or just parading around the ranch in an above-the-knee pinkish red striped dress?
Mr. Gerber, the candy striper doesn't parade around the ranch. She parades around my bedroom, and bathroom. And
While we're on the subject, I think the audience would like more information that's in regard in the legal business, to Rhemus Helms' bedroom, and particularly your bed.
My bed? Well, it's more than a bed.
I imagine, just for me, I imagine a 10 to 15 foot in diameter, circular bed, maybe even slightly oval shaped. It makes into a jacuzzi like in the Silencers movie with Dean Martin.
Mr. Gerber, the late Tom Wolfe described my bed as an entire city. But mostly the red light district and maybe Studio 54.
I guess we'll just leave it at that and assume you don't get a good night's rest with all the ambulance sounds and maybe noises of the big city like the Big Apple.
There are apples, tomatoes, cherries on Sundays, pears, definitely cantaloupes, even watermelon-sized...
Maybe your bet is beyond the scope of this show.
I'd say so.
Not to change the subject, Rhemus Helms, but I wanted to mention the big changes in employment law since I started, besides wage and hour cases and class actions, dividing the group of lawyers who represent employees. Arbitration has been a big ticket item in the last 5 years. There's been a lot of hoopla about the concept class actions are automatically waived, not like your hand, if an arbitration agreement has been signed by the employee.
Mr. Gerber, I've read your 2 published opinions about employment arbitration. After our last meeting, I decided the arbitrator of my disputes doesn't have to be older than me. But he or she must wear a miniature headpiece through the arbitration proceedings. And even when writing the arbitration opinion.
That is weird, and I want real people to call a real employment lawyer of 25 years. Whoopee, I became a lawyer 25 years ago, November 23rd, 1993. Call me, seriously, if you got an employment problem at 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700. 877-525-0700. I've got offices from Bakersfield all the way down to the Inland Empire with 3 of them in Los Angeles. So I might script a weird show, but I got a lot of offices, a lot of cases, and I've won 46 out of 48 of the binding arbitrations I first chaired in jury trials. There's been another 50 or 100 that I've probably second chaired. You go find the civil lawyer who's done all those trials doing employment law representing employees. I don't think you will. So, you know what? I might be doing something right, at least I hope, but Rhemus, how exactly can the parties ensure that your arbitrator will wear the headdress when typing away at her or his computer when writing the arbitration opinion like an arbitrator's got to do at some point?
That's a good point. The enforcer can be there.
The arbitrator has to be free from outside influences. One of your cosplay actors can't be standing over him or her watching them make a decision about the case.
Can an arbitrator take an oath to wear the headpiece?
Well, an arbitrator can, and it can be part of the arbitration contract, which the law requires the arbitrator to follow, even though he may not otherwise be bound by the law, and that's true. You just have to hope the other side or the arbitrator doesn't claim it's an absurd contract term that the law would not enforce.
No, of course it's an absurd contract term.
There has even been some recent attempts to make it clear that interns have to be paid if they do the same type of work as an employee that does a certain job, or at least work that people would usually be paid for. The legal stuff on this show, by the way, it's all real. I don't make up the law. I give it to you exactly the way it is.
Well, that's hard to figure out. Say, for instance, the Helms Foundation has a geology student from Cal Poly Pomona helping test for evidence of an, eruption.
Eruption? I fear we're treading into Rhemus Helms' tertiary topics not appropriate for the radio.
Mr. Gerber, California has 3 very high-risk volcanic sites, 3 sites that can be classified as high risk, and 2 with a moderate risk of eruption.
Is the Helms Foundation for charitable purposes focused on all types of eruptions?
No. Merely sexual eruptions and volcanic eruptions.
Clearly, both are along the same lines, I suppose, but at any rate, are you saying the geology student is an intern?
Eddie Chang has worked 2 summers for the foundation.
I hate to ask, but since there is a relationship between, at least according to you, sexual eruptions and volcanic eruptions, has Mr. Chang worked on your research relating to both types of eruptions?
Mr. Gerber, Eddie is a geology student. He looks for, bulges.
Is this why you claim volcanic eruptions and sexual eruptions are the same?
Mr. Gerber, The summit will bulge 1 to 2 meters during an eruption.
Again, what type of eruption are we talking about?
Does it matter?
In your case, no. The question is whether Mr. Chang is performing work or engaging in a mere experience.
Mr. Gerber, watching any eruption of magnitude is an experience.
I'm not really aware of any recent volcanic eruptions in California, so I'll assume Mr. Chang is watching the other type of eruption.
Yeah, he's out testing the pH levels in Medicine Lake, looking for safe water to test in the Salton Sea.
All right, so if he's being trained how to conduct pH tests of lakes of potentially volcanic areas, he doesn't have to be paid.
Yeah. Eddie's a smart kid. After 1 or 2 pH tests, he's been a go.
What exactly an unpaid intern can do has been severely restricted. Recent cases, I feel they can hang around observing how a profession works, how it's done. They can be trained. They really can't do anything. Once they do anything that furthers the business, they have to be paid.
That's a shame. Because there are pH tests I want interns to conduct at the free clinics I want to open. Should I just pay them?
Well, besides paying interns to conduct pH tests, presumably of private areas of women, you better make sure that those interns hold the right licenses and background checks.
I am so glad you said this. I wouldn't want anybody to think I had a bunch of perverted interns running around putting their fingers in places they shouldn't.
Non-profits, Rhemus, are generally subject to the same employment laws as for-profits. They're also subject to the same types of laws like those aimed at not having sex offenders perform exams on persons that they may molest.
The Helms Foundation certainly would not have any sex offenders.
Oh, I wouldn't think so. I don't think they'd have to dip down that low. I can imagine all of the people who would gladly volunteer for your organization. It is a non-profit, right?
My minimal $5 million grant in 1997 has grown to close to $1 billion by now.
So during this episode of the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show, which happens to be episode 32, and was supposed to be an episode celebrating my 25 years as an employee lawyer, we've popped the cork, heard how Rhemus Helms' thing got infringed, covered unpaid interns, which there are some important laws about and people should know about because they really need to be paid. We've talked about some of the changes in employment law, such as wage and hour proliferation. I guess now a lot of people are suing to get paid wages that they should be paid. When I started out, really, no one was doing meal and rest break cases. The law really was just maybe federal. We used a reg. Some of the statutes for that didn't exist. And industries became very regimented in making their employees take the 10-minute meal breaks twice per shift. It's not 15 minutes, by the way. It's 10 minutes. And you're only entitled to if you've worked over 3.5 hours. But I've had some cases where people got fired for not taking the meal break. And so some people say maybe the whole crackdown has gone a little too far and people don't like it when waiters say, well, I'm going to give your table to someone else. But that's been a very big change about meal breaks, rest breaks, and tips. The whole thing about tip sharing and waiters can't be forced to give their tips to management. So that's been something that's changed. Also, binding arbitration, that means that you can't have your case in court. And it also means you can't have a class action, which is a real problem because a lot of these cases for overtime, you might have someone that only owed $500 or $1,000, and if there's a group of 1,000 people or 10,000 or 100,000, the case can be brought, but no lawyer is going to take a case for a very small amount of money. And the other problem with the whole class action waiver thing is a lot of present employees are afraid to sue, and if they're in a class action, they're okay being in the class action, but they don't want to be having a lawsuit in their name name about it. There's also been a rise in FMLA lawsuits, the Family Medical Leave, which covers serious medical conditions and disabilities. A lot of disability lawsuits are presently going on. Most people you talk to will say that's just about all they see with employment law. It's not just about IC. I have the most number of new client calls in the state, and there are times when I've had the most in the nation when I've done this on a nationwide basis. So I see the full gamut. And I want to just say that I hope this has been more amusing than live callers that beat around the bush and the guests get put to sleep. When new callers call my office, we take 150 calls easily in a week. We have quite a few emails also. The people are not honest. They try to mislead the lawyer. It's for the lawyer to figure it out and to call them out. And a lot of them just have done something wrong and should be fired. So I think really the best place for a client to call a lawyer is confidential offline at my office, 877-525-0700. Once again, 877-525-0700 for really the longest standing law firm representing employees in California. That's my firm. That's 877-525-0700. Going back 25 years, just compared to really who's doing this, it was doing it 25 years ago. It's me and it might be a couple other people. Most of the people calling themselves employment lawyers are newer. They haven't had the experience I've had. They certainly haven't had the number of cases. And I can see a defense that they can't. I can tell them what's going to happen with their case sometimes when a newer lawyer can't. So although this show is funny, it's about crazy things, there's a very serious aspect to representing employees. I hope you join me next week from 7 to 8 on this station, and I hope you check out old episodes on workplacelawyer.org or the KABC website. This has been the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show on Talk Radio 790 KABC. Thanks for listening.
I'm happy with you. Let's celebrate a happy anniversary.
This show furnished by Karl Gerber and Employment Lawyers Group.